Hi, and welcome to the Brohoyo podcast, the podcast about Gacha in general and Hoyoverse games in specific. I'm your host, Steven, and this is my co host, David.
Hey everyone.
So it's Christmas in July, and I think it's time for summer events. So why don't we jump right in? Dave, can you please give us a brief description of what summer events are for those in the audience who might not be familiar with them?
Yeah, so for Gacha games, being a live service game, there's typically new content that rolls out periodically on whatever cycle it be, a 2, 3 week cycle, 6 week cycle, whatever it may be. But most gachas in what's standard now in tradition is that every summer, typically we see an event specifically geared for summer themes. So that means beaches, that means usually bathing suits, stuff like that. Just your stereotypical summer vacation type elements and general tropes, right? So if you're a fan of any type of anime as well, it's the beach episode, right? It has nothing to do with the plot typically, though I guess technically some anime or some do make the beach events canon. But yeah, typically it's just a for fun type event and an excuse to go out and have the characters be in beach swimwear and surfing type stuff. And so with us being in the middle of July now, these are typically when these start to spike. So it's obviously depending on where you are in the world, sometimes it gets a little hotter in June, but typically it's July is when these summer events we start to see them roll out. And we are starting to see them and have had some ongoing in a few of the gotchas we played. But we wanted to talk just a little bit about these events, what makes them special, why people maybe look forward to these more than just like a standard event during the course of the year. So, Steve, throwing it back to you,
hmm
what games are you playing that are in their summer events, and how do you feel about summer events?
Well, first, I would like to remind everybody that we did not forget about the people who live in the southern hemisphere and that it is winter for them, technically. We just don't care. So, as far as summer events go, currently, and we'll probably mention them again later, but I believe Brown Dust 2 as well as Nikkei have had their summer events already. And of course, Genshin is in the middle of its summer event. I do also want to point out or bring up that a lot of times summer events aren't just an excuse for more provocative skins for characters, the swimsuit skins and so on and so forth, or skin swimsuit characters. It is also typically like a larger patch, I've noticed. Typically, if it's the summer event, there's a lot of work and effort put into it. It tends to be larger and more elaborate than other patches in the patch cycle, partially because it's also a good time, I feel, for a lot of different companies to try and grab in potential customers. You have a lot of kids on break, a lot of people who summer is traditionally more of a vacation time period. So some people have more time than they normally would have to focus on gotchas, and so there's a little bit more competition in the market, which is I think why they get a little bit bigger, which I guess segues into what my thoughts are on summer events. That in general, I'm always a fan of more content. I do like I like my gotcha. I like having things to do in it. So the larger events, the more intricate gameplay systems are always nice to see. And I'm not going to complain about the skins. I know that there's sometimes controversy around them, but for the most part, I don't have a problem with the swimsuit skins. So, Dave, your thoughts?
Yeah, and you touched on a couple good points about summer events being typically bigger and with a lot more content. So we saw this with Genshin in the past with the Apple Archipelago events. So it's like a whole new area that we had 3 weeks or whatever it was to explore, complete with chests and puzzles and side quests and stuff to do. And also like fully voice acted cutscenes as well as is another element that sometimes we see like with Nikkei right now with their summer event that's ongoing. They have a whole map to explore and then voice acted cutscenes, which may not be the standard for just a normal event over the course of the year. So for summer events, for me, I always look forward to those. See which Gacha games are doing what in terms of how big of a production they're making it. So for Genshin, I always enjoyed exploring the Archipelago Islands and also some of the story that and some of the lore they would drop in it was usually pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'm
You
gonna be
know,
honest. I'm always a sucker for the Apple Archipelago. It's usually a Klee patch, which is
yes, I was gonna
you
say yeah.
know,
Usually it was a Cleat patch, so I know for you that was fun getting some lore with her backstory and her mom. And then the other thing I think that Hoyo has done with Genshin specifically is it almost like it would tease new systems they were going to be implementing in the next area. Like I remember when the Apple Archipelago patch first came out, the first time they ran it, and it was obviously they introduced a lot of things, but the one
mhm.
thing that was like getting in the boat and then cruising around the open water in the boat. And then shortly after that patch, what happened? We went to Inazuma, which was
Mhm.
all islands, and we were in a boat, and we were going from island to island in boat. So it kind of gave me a chance to play that and work out any kinks from both
Well,
maybe on a smaller scale.
yeah. Do you want to hear my conspiracy theory about part of the reason why it's that way?
I love conspiracy theories. I love hearing them.
Okay, so my conspiracy theory is I believe that most of the summer events that we see are actually designed and developed probably back in like the winter of the previous year. I would guess probably December and January, right before Chinese New Year, since that's the big holiday in China,
Mhm.
where you're going to have a bunch of designers and developers who have to start working on the next zone, like the next region, and getting that development times. They have to have fairly large lead times in order to get all of this done. So my bet is that they've probably started working on the next zone, but they've created a vertical slice of it. And what they basically are doing for the summer event is they're going, hey, you know all that work we did back in January, whatever? Well, we created the mini zone that is the vertical slice of it. Let's just take that and use that as the summer event and load that in, which is why they never hang around. Is because they're all just beta files that they've thrown together to make work, and they're recycling them in order to a test the ideas and b they've put a lot of effort into it. They might as well use it.
That's not so far fetched to be a conspiracy. I feel like that would be an efficient use of resources, right? So that's not so
Well,
crazy.
and the reason I say it's a conspiracy theory is I have zero proof of this. This is entirely me just looking at a corkboard and going, based off of what I know of development times and so forth, I'm willing to bet that instead of devoting an entire team to this, this is the like, hey, back in version X.2 or X.3 when we're working on the new zone and we're everything's firing on those cylinders and it's right before Christmas and everybody's tired, or in their case Chinese New Year, and everybody's tired. Let's get this together and boom, we can recycle it later. We'll do that then.
Like I said, that's a logical one, right? It's
Yeah.
not like other conspiracy theories out there. Like I'll say it. People who think the moon landing's fake, like that conspiracy theory, that's wild. That's crazy. That's out there. What you're saying, this makes sense. Why reinvent the wheel if we've already done all these resources to program for the next zone? Why not use a little bit of it here and save ourselves some time while still making it fun and applicable, right?
So sorry to cut in, but yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you. So to see if I can get myself back on track or regain my train of thought. Not that I don't. I appreciate where you went with that because I agree with you on that. I think that's a fair statement. But yeah, as far as you talked about alternative skins and swimsuit skins and the fan service aspect of that, and that sometimes bothers people. I stuff like that. It doesn't. It's not going to bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. Because it would be weirder if they were probably in their normal attire at the beach because sand gets everywhere, and I wouldn't want that in my suit of armor
It,
or whatever have you. You know.
sand, it's coarse
But
and irritating and gets
right.
everywhere.
I don't know if they grade it, but course.
Yeah.
So, but speaking of that, kind of talking about skins versus sometimes, obviously, with a new patch, we also get new units that come out, and some games it will be maybe. So I'll use Nikke as an example, right? Because it's fresh on my mind. I was just playing earlier today, knocking out my dailies. They have alternative units. So basically, like the two units that are brand new for this year's summer event are the summer version of Sakura and the summer version of Rosanna. And so when I say alternate units, I mean that there is a normal Rosanna and a normal Sakura, and they are their own standalone units, and then they release these as also their own standalone units, as opposed to an alternate skin, meaning it's the same unit, the same skill set, the same kit, and it's just a different unit.
Oh, okay.
So
So
again, just keeping in the Nikkei vein, something like how Maiden has a swimsuit skin, but there's not an alternate Maiden. It's still the same base unit, the same abilities. It's just now instead of being in whatever outfit she was in before, she's in her bathing suit. Or they also did this with Guilty as well, and that's how they monetize because they do it through battle passes and such.
okay. So just
So
for our Genshin and Hoyo audience,
yes,
this would be similar to Don Hung, Illuminat, I can't Illuminati, and regular Don Hung.
Imbiber.
Imbiber, thank you. I wanted to say illusion, and I got the two combined, but yeah, Don Hung Imbiber and regular Don Hung. This isn't a case like with, say, Genshin, where you can get the usually Chinese New Year dresses or the alternate skin for Diluc. Like that's the
Yeah,
situation
I was like,
here.
I don't think Genshin really has the closest thing comparison you can make with Genshin is with the Traveler and how you have different elements
Hmm.
for the Traveler, but you would have to but the caveat would be you would have to level up the Traveler independently
Yeah, it would
each
have to be
time.
a
Whereas at
new
least in this
pool.
one, in the Genshin, you at least the Traveler keeps the level. You still have to do
Oh,
the traces. Yeah, so it's not a perfect analogy, but
mhm.
that's why it's an analogy. But to the question, Steve, as far as how do you feel about alternate units? Because I know you're a collector in a lot of gotcha games, so you want to try and collect them all. But in those games that have the same unit, but it's so it's Rosanna, but it's Rosanna's alternate. Do you prefer that, or would you just prefer a brand new unit with her kit, maybe similar appearance or whatever style, but not Rosanna? To continue that
No,
analogy or that example.
I think it depends on the game, which I know is a bit of a cop-out answer, but I'm thinking of Brown Dust 2, where in Brown Dust 2, skins have mechanical effects.
Yeah,
So whenever you get, for example, the free, it's not Ari, the free,
Dalvy.
thank you, Dalvi skin for the summer event that I don't know if that's even still available anymore, but
It is for the next week,
for the
I
next
think.
week.
But go
Okay.
ahead.
So, for that skin, it has a mechanical effect. You are able to get a more powerful character because you're able to get 5 levels of it, and et cetera, et cetera, because of that costume. Whereas it's not just a cosmetic change. In that game, I think a new character would actually bother me because they already have a system in place that's built around getting new costumes and so on and so forth. For something like Genshin or to a lesser degree Star Rail, I I don't know. There's a part of me that says I actually wouldn't mind it, primarily if the character is old enough or if it's a character that, for example, is going from 4 star to 5 star. There's a change in power or a change in effect in some way. That wouldn't bother me so much. Again, part of it is I'm looking at Genshin, and there's a lot of characters that have either been done dirty over the years or just power creep has crept in, and they're no longer the powerhouses they used to be. I'll be honest, if they were to release an alternate version of Klee, I'd be down, especially if she's been bumped up to the new power level. An alternate version of Eula would be something that I would kind of be okay with. Again, just because time has not done well to that character, and because of the shenanigans around the way gotchas work, going in and giving them a buff or an update is dicey. It's something that a lot of companies are unwilling to do. So releasing a new version of that character that is up to current standards is something that I would be not happy with, but understanding of. If it's
Okay, okay.
something that's a little bit more, for example, again, I'm going to go with Genshin because I think most of our audience is aware of that. But if you were to get Farina, the most recent Archon that came out, if she was to get a alternate skin that was actually an alternate version of her, I think I would be upset by that because Farina is not in need of any assistance. She's already a very powerful character. She's an Archon. She's she's in a good place. There's no need for you to really do that. I would rather just see a skin. Or if it was a situation where you were taking, say, Diluc, who's already a fire greatsword wielding, he's not really a ult user. His kit, if they were to basically just take his kit, move the numbers up, and then re-release him, I think I would be upset as well, because that's really just them charging you for a buff to the character. Like, there would have to be some sort of mechanical change, mechanical update that makes them either play different or feel different. In general, and I guess to kind of circle all the way back around, in general, I would rather see costumes than re-releases of characters or alternate releases of characters, where I'd rather just the visual updates and so on and so forth versus a full new kit or a full new character that you have to pull for. If
So that's interesting.
yeah.
So I want to touch on a couple of your points. I don't share a similar viewpoint on everything. So I want to go through it because you hit on a few things. And so I'll bring up the Brown Dust 2 example that you brought up first, because for a game like that, to explain some of the mechanics for those that maybe don't try it, it's a grid-based kind of strategy game. You position your team, and then it essentially it auto fights each round, and you choose the abilities that your character will use that particular round, and then based off of positioning and what they do, it plays itself out, right? So when you talk about and you talked about the mechanics in that being that a different costume has a different skill, so it maybe has a different attack pattern, different effects,
Mhm.
different damage multipliers, whatever have you. That aspect is true, but what I appreciate about Brown Dust too in that is that you don't have to. So let's using Dalvy as the example. She has a summer skin that you can currently get as part of the event +5 for free, just for like logging in and playing the game. And then she has her base skin, her base ability is another skin. So she has two skins in the game right now. But in order to use those two abilities, I don't have to have both of her in my party, right? It doesn't take up two character slots in my party. It only takes up one.
Correct. Yeah.
And then you just, depending on what ability is on cooldown and how much energy you can you have allotted to use that particular round, you can use either spell.
Mhm.
Versus there are some other games out there. I think the name slips me right now, but there's
And
I think the Konosuba Gacha did this, and it's maybe part of the reason I stopped playing months and months and months ago, where they will release Aqua, and they will release an alternate version of Aqua who does something completely different.
mhm.
But in order to have Aqua you have to have she takes up two spots in the party
Yeah,
to use both of the
and I
abilities.
guess to clarify, part of the reason why Brown Dust doesn't bother me is that they built that game from the ground up around the idea of these costumes
Mhm.
instead of
And
something.
that's why I thought it was important to
Yeah.
clarify that they do their combat a little bit more unique because and it's part of the reason there are other reasons, some that are fairly obvious,
Mhm.
for why I play Brown Dust 2.
Yeah.
Another part is that it has a PC client, but
I could have used
the
the.
combat is unique, and it's different than a lot of the other gotcha games out there. And I know we're bunny trailing a little
Yeah.
bit, shocker, but that's part of the reason I play and enjoy that, because it is more strategy based, and you have to really think about your positioning and resource management and what skills are going to hit what units, and then what units are left alive, which ones are going to hit you, and who are they going to hit. So yes, so it's a little bit unique. And to your point, it's built and predicated around having multiple, building a character and having multiple of their costumes, so they have a multi-layered toolkit that they can use, and they're not stuck just using maybe one ability or a basic attack if it's on cooldown, right? So for a game like that, and they actually did just release an alternate version of a character in the last patch. Justia, who's the poster girl for the game, her her original skin before last patch, her original character had about 5 or 6 different costumes for her, so 5 or 6 different abilities for her, and the build is similar in that all of those characters are built around flat attack. And so this new Justia they released, they introduced as a separate character. So that costume isn't part of that original Justia, because it's
Mhm.
built around a different fundamental. It's not built around flat attack, actually, or fixed damage, excuse me. It's not built around fixed damage. It's built around attack percentage. And so rather than having a seventh costume for the same unit that has a completely different mechanic, and you would build a completely different way in terms of gear, they just did it separately. So for something like that, that to me, I didn't have a problem with that. That's okay. And then as far as like new characters, I just always I like Brown Dust. I played the original Brown Dust that's now Brave 9, and so I just always enjoy when they bring in new characters. But I think to your point, in terms of like in Genshin, I would not like it if they, similar to what you said, in terms of if there was, using Farina as an example, right? If they just released another Farina that had a different kit and had its own banner and was separate from the Archon Farina that we know and love in the game, I would not enjoy that. That is not something I would look at as a good thing. But with what they did, like with Don Hung, and you mentioned this too, like if there's a power step up, so from a 4-star to a 5-star, similar to what they've done with Don Hung and then in Byra Don Hung, and what they may or may not be doing with another character in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Had some vivid dreams. Slash, I don't remember what's been officially announced. So that's all I'll say. That to me is okay and all well and good because there's a power differentiation. They're not in the same rarity. So, and then with a game like Nikke, where it's same rarity, different kit. While I did just say that would bother me in Genshin, in Nikke it doesn't bother me, and I think that partially is maybe due to the pull economy. And we've talked about pull economy,
Yeah.
back in an early episode. So I think that has part of it to do too. Is I don't mind an alternate character if the pull economy is a bit better. And the pull economy, like in Brown Dust 2, is they're very generous in terms of what they give out to their players. It's free to play. And in Nikke, if you're smart and you budget out things, they can be pretty nice, especially with right now with going through a summer event when there's generally more rewards and more things that they're giving out, maybe more in-game codes that you can redeem type stuff. And I know I've gone on for a while on this.
Well,
That's
I
all.
guess my other thought would be, because I did mention updating characters. What was your thought on that?
So I think you got to be careful with updating characters in Gacha games in terms of both buffs and nerfs, because updates could go either way, right? And we don't typically see a lot of nerfing of characters in Gacha live service games. I think because there's maybe some legislation in some countries that prevents it because of false advertising, because maybe they spend
Yeah.
money or
Well,
pull for that. So there's that
yeah.
aspect of it, but I don't want to approach it from that aspect because that's an easy answer. Oh, it's the law, and so you just and then you that's the answer. So
Yeah.
so taking that out of account to go to your question as far as how do I feel about strengthening or weakening characters.
Well, I guess more specifically, using alternate versions of characters as a way to try and bring characters back into line. So again,
So I would say like releasing a new character. I would say that there's better ways to bring a character back into line. I would say doing an alternate character just to give the alternate version of them a power spike isn't it. Most, I would say most guys, in my experience, I'll word it that way. In my experience, gotchas that try and bring older characters into the limelight don't do an alternate maybe version of the character, but they usually maybe incorporate a new gimmick, whether it be like alternate or like favorite or preferred weapons or favorite items or something that go to a
they
specific character
try
to
and do it.
alter an ability slightly. That way you're not changing the base character and giving a new grindy gimmick that a player
Mhm.
will have to work towards and earn. Somebody who spends money can just pay to jump ahead, get that item, and then boom, power boost to the character. But as far as like an alternate character, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily love that just to make them relevant in the meta again. That wouldn't be it for me.
Oh, well, we've gone
Um,
completely off of summer events.
oh yeah, we did a
So,
little bit. So let me bring it back in terms of summer skins. So we've talked about alternative
mhm.
characters, and we touched a little bit on obviously summer skins come out typically bathing suit or beach oriented. In terms of how you see those packaged, is there ever anything in you that says I'm gonna, because typically it's behind a real money paywall to
Mhm.
get these. Is there ever anything where you're gonna say, yeah, I'm buying that skin, I'm spending real money on it? Or if the event maybe you can earn it for free, but it's super grindy, but it still is ultimately obtainable. Does anything ever move the needle for you on those?
So in general, the the answer is if it's buyable, if it's a pure cosmetic, give us $15. Here is your skin. The only thing that's really going to move the needle for me is I have to like the character. It's the reason why I own the Klee skin in Genshin. Is I like Klee. They gave her the little witch costume back in, I think it was October of last year, or was that the summer event? I cannot remember when that one came out.
Last year,
Regardless,
yeah, last year.
yeah, it was last year sometime. Doesn't matter. So when that came out, I basically went, you know what? I do the monthly pass anyways. They give you like $3 worth or 300 of the crystals. I had a bunch saved up. I'll burn that on on Klee. I'll save up a little bit instead of using them on pools or anything. I'll use them for Klee. So that's what I did there. The Nahida skin that came out looks nice. I'll probably do something similar where I'll just save up the monthly tokens for it. Now, admittedly, that's a half a year that I'd have to save them up for, but there's no real rush. I can get it. If it's something like a battle pass where you have to complete the battle pass and get it, the usual rules for passes apply. I have to be able to complete it before I buy it, and then if I've hit that point, it would then become whether I like the skin or not. I will admit I am kicking myself a little bit for not getting the Mary bunny skin in Nikke. I liked that one, but it's also like what, $15 for that battle pass, $20 for that battle pass.
Yeah, Nikkei does their battle passes at either $15 or $20.
And
So it's not just the skin you're getting; it's also like some growth materials and maybe a couple poles.
yeah,
So I
so
can at least appreciate that. But yeah, some games they just skin $20, and you're like, "Ugh, I don't know."
yeah, I'm actually more fine with that. To go on another conspiracy theory slash bunny
Yes.
trail. This is just the podcast for them, or this is the episode for them. I suspect that part of the reason why Genshin doesn't have more skins is because they can't gotchify them. They can't put them in boxes or what have you and make you gamble for them. They just put them out as flat dollars and they make more off of characters. And I guess they decide, you know what, the designers and modelers could be spending their time working on other stuff that makes us more money and is more valuable. So
Interesting take. Interesting take.
we're just not going to do it because we don't they don't see they see it as an opportunity cost. They have their internal numbers. I'd be curious to see how much those skins actually make.
I would be
um,
too, because we get the numbers on like the banners, but I don't think we've seen numbers on what costumes have made.
yeah, there's a part of me that goes, you know what, I think the reason why they especially recently have been dropping them about once a year, once every 6 months, I think is the cycle that they do, is explicitly to drain the resources of the people who do the monthly pass, because basically after 6 months you will have 1,800 of those crystals, and
Hmm.
that's roughly what some of those skins cost. Now some of them you have to buy with real money, like you don't have the option to use the gems for them, but I believe most of them do have a gem cost associated with them.
Yeah, if you don't hit them when they're on sale, like when they just launched, because I think they're 1350 of those Genesis crystals
Yeah,
when they're on sale, and then they jump up to like, yeah, 1680 or
yeah,
something when they're not.
1680, which would be about 300 times. It's basic math, but
Essentially six,
yeah,
yeah.
essentially six. So yeah, it basically every 6 months gives them a way to drain those off of the daily users, so they then have to either buy or burn them. They can't just sit on them forever. And
And then because they're 1680 and you had 1800, well, now I have 120 left over. I might as well buy the next Welkin just so I
yeah,
can.
get more. And well, and the nice part is that hey, if you've been doing it for 5 months, that'll get you enough for the next
Yeah.
skin.
Hey, that's.
Or actually, you'd probably be about like 10
I
short,
think
I think.
that's a well-known trick
Yeah.
that gaming developers do. Blizzard was notorious for doing it with their battle pass with Premium and Diablo. Like they caught some flack for it.
Mhm.
So it's just a thing that happens. So it's just trying to get a little bit more money out of you. You're
Yep.
already committed. What's another $5?
Exactly. So yeah, that's I went on a complete tangent there, so I do apologize,
No,
but yeah.
you're good. So the needle can be moved. Your caveat was you have to really like the character.
Yeah, yeah. It can't be a like I don't own the Deluxe skin because I'll be honest, Genshin Batman doesn't do anything for me, even though it is a really nice skin. I don't have the oh Samurai Girl. I can't believe I'm blanking on her name. I want to call her Asaka, and it's not Asaka. Ice Girl.
You're talking about Ayaka?
Ayaka. Yeah, there we go. I don't know why I was putting an S there.
She's even on your account. Oh, she should leave you and come to me. Oh,
She should, because you have two of her primary weapons.
I
But
too.
regardless, yeah, I don't own the skin for that, mainly because I didn't find that skin very appealing at Summer
Yeah,
Dress.
I like your default skin better on that one.
Yeah, it doesn't hold a candle to to Ganyu's dress or to
Oh,
Kaching's.
Ganyu and Shenhe when they.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so similar to you, I have to like the character, and even beyond that, I have to use the character.
Hmm.
It's not enough to just like them for me. I have to because I want to be able to because you see it. That's the whole
Yeah.
point. And I remember back when Ganyu and Shenhuz were going on, I had free money at the time. I had like a gift card I'd gotten for, ironically, going back a few weeks to our game of swipe, save, or skip. I think did have a telecommunications gift card
Hmm.
that I could have spent on those skins, and I opted for another gotcha, and I missed in that gotcha, so I have buyer's remorse. And I think I told you that,
Yeah.
and I was like, man, I should have just gotten the Ganyu and the Shenhe skin, and I would be happy because I use them in a team. It's like that's my freeze team is like Mona, Shenhe, Ganyu, and then I think Bookworm Boy for healing. But now I can use Farina in that team
Yeah.
since she also heals.
Yeah. Kind of.
Yeah, you drain the DPS a bit, but she does technically heal
Yeah,
and
I
is
know.
pretty good at it.
So yeah, that's why I said kinda. Yeah.
Yeah, she's no Kokomi. That's not her main role, I would argue, but it is passable, right? So yeah, so like you, yeah, I would have to like and use the character. So the only skin that I got in Genshin is Kaching's,
Hmm.
and that is at because I did have her built and I was using her in a team at the time back then, and I do like her kit, and she's a fun character. But even the caveat there is that money that I spent on that, I won I won some contest. Like I won some like streamer was holding a contest and I won
Hmm.
something, so I had $20 to spend and chose to do it on that. So I didn't even spend my money. So I'm trying to think if there's even a skin. I don't think there's a just pure skin I've spent actual money on because I haven't had one that it looks good. I like the character and I use the character because like there's been some that I use the character but you don't like the skin. There's some that like the character but I don't use them. So the skin, that's the whole point of the skin type stuff. And I wish more games would do this. And because I'm a pretty patient individual. Because a lot of these games, it's like you said, the 6 month paying the real money on the Genesis crystals to ultimately get it. But like a game like Azure Lane, like you can be patient and save up the premium gem currency that they very rarely give out, and then you can ultimately buy skins. Like that's how
Yeah.
that game basically makes its money is because a lot of people just buy the skins. But like for me, like me being patient, I can wait so long and then ultimately buy a skin. And I wish more games did that, especially games that make their money somewhere else. Like so a game like Genshin
Yeah.
to me would be like give me the option to just spend primo gems on a skin. And I'm sure you would probably bring in more money than just by limiting it to Genesis crystals.
So, I think Genshin is unfortunately a bad example. I understand where you're coming from, but I think Genshin is a bad example for that because Genshin doesn't do skins nearly enough to make that work. So I'm thinking of more like a League of Legends or something similar where the the skins play a much larger, I don't want to say a larger role, but there's enough of them that if there is a skin you'd like, you can save up for, but there's always going to be more skins coming out
Mhm.
and on a fairly decent cadence that it's like, okay, yeah, you might not buy this one, but you can't save up for all of them and get what you want. You're going to eventually, if you want everything, you're either going to have a 5 year timeline or you're going to have to cave and
Yeah.
buy. But Genshin really, for whatever reason, I don't want to say for whatever reason, but for internal reasons, they have decided that they don't want to go down that route or they don't want to add that. Again, maybe they're just looking at their market and going, hey, not enough people have a small enough portion of the population of their game is going to even own the character in order to buy the skin. That's not worth it. So we're not going to bother. Whereas something like, and I could be wrong, but if I remember correctly, Azure Lane is not super stingy with characters. Like you're able to get a fair
No,
chunk
no,
of
they
them.
are not. No, like I
Yeah,
said, they make their money from their skins.
yeah. So that's their bread and butter. Brown Dust too would be another one that they're very generous with their pools, but they make their money off of other portions of trying to nickel and dime you. So, yeah, I think that at least with the way that Genshin has set up their ecosystem, unfortunately, I doubt we're ever going to get the sort of large, this sounds creepy, but skin market that we see in other gotchas, just because they seem more focused on gambling for the characters versus flat, hey, here's $20 for a skin. I feel like they're, at least personally, they could probably justify hiring a couple people to model and design these characters. Get a small team, have them crank out one every patch, one for a 5-star, ideally one for a 4-star, and go from there. And I think that that team would probably pay for itself, but again, I don't have their internal numbers.
Now, we are going to talk about summer events, right? Events.
Eventually, yeah, we
Funny
keep on.
fest.
We were talking before the episode, and I kept on mentioning, you know what, this is going to be just a backdoor episode for talking about skins, and
and and
yeah.
and to continue on with, so we've talked about summer skins, we talked about alternate units, and we talked about these summer units. But another thing that these summer events do sometimes as well is they make the summer units limited, so they won't go into the general pool
Mhm.
after the summer event is over. So you essentially would have to wait for the rerun an entire year before the next one comes up. So that's another like way to give you that foam
Mhm.
and really spend your currency to pull for these units, which, and I think we've talked a little bit about this before when we talked about collaborations, and that I don't necessarily mind limited characters so much, but they cannot be meta defining. They can be good, they can be
Yeah.
above average in the meta, but they cannot be meta defining, because that's where you run into issues for those that maybe start your game after the event is over and then they have to wait a whole year, or like we talked about in the collaboration events, sometimes collabs never rerun again.
Yeah.
So, but as it pertains to summer, which is reminding myself again what this episode's about, they would effectively have to wait a year to get that unit again, and in the next year, what's going to come out that maybe changes or shakes up the meta, and then you've missed out, right? Then you've missed out on the time when it was a meta defining unit. So
Yeah.
if it's limited, that's fine, just cannot be meta defining.
Yeah, I think I'd keep my general opinion from the collab episode, which is aftercare. I think I'm less concerned with the limited just because it is on a yearly cadence. And again, looking at Eula and a couple of other characters and Genshin and Honkai who haven't gotten reruns in how long? That's not necessarily I don't want to say unreasonable, but that's not an unusual amount of time to have to wait for a character to cycle back around. Shin Jinha? Shinya? Ice Girl. Ice versions of her.
Which we talking Genshin? We
Genshin.
talking Shenhe?
Genshin. Yeah, Shinna. Whatever. I'm awful with names. I know it. Doesn't matter. Shinna. Shinna. She hasn't gotten re-rolled at all, or she hasn't gotten another banner in how long? It's been over a year, I think.
Yeah, it's been a minute for her.
Yeah.
And the last thing I wanted to talk about in terms of summer events, and something we both neglected, I think, to mention, or maybe we did, but we just mentioned in passing, was usually with summer events, you have your story quests that go along with it, but there's also like little events that are like mini game
Yeah, yeah.
type things that go on as well. And so I want to talk about a couple of maybe of your favorite mini games that have stood out to you. And I won't restrict this necessarily. I don't want to restrict this
Mhm.
to just Genshin or Star Rail. So any Gacha game that you've been playing that's had a summer event that's been memorable to you or is fun or you maybe wish was year round.
It's the Apple Archipelago. I'm going to be honest, that one, as far as summer events go, the first Apple Archipelago was by far my favorite. The second one wasn't as good. It wasn't bad, but I wasn't as big of a fan of it as the first one, where a it was a big zone that you just got to explore. You really got to enjoy the verticality of Genshin, using the paraglider and so on and so forth. The glider, the boat made at least at the time, was still fresh and new and interesting to be able to navigate around. And because you were doing it on the ocean instead of on a stream or on a very large lake, it, I don't know, it worked a little bit better. It felt like it served a bit more of a purpose than, I could just swim across this and it's a non-issue, or it's too tight to really maneuver and do anything with. But yeah, I think the first Apple Archipelago is my gold standard of summer event, which isn't just because Genshin was an open world game, but it really did feel like an entire, almost new zone. Well, it was a new zone, but it was an entire new zone that you got to play around with and interact with meaningfully. And I haven't really seen anything quite to that level, even in other Hoyoverse games or in other gotchas.
Well, and they also did some fun mini games because I think they had what the boat racing and then like the tennis type mini
Yep,
game I think as well.
yep. They had the tennis, they
Um,
had the boat racing, they had something with hoops. I remember there was like a light hoop thing that you had to do.
oh yeah, you had to like
Yeah,
reflect the light and make it pass through the hoops and
yeah, yeah.
change those angles, those little puzzles. Yeah, yeah, that was a good one. With a lot of like little fun mini events in there. I for me one that's kind of fun for me and is kind of nostalgic for me in terms of bringing back some memories, but um, it has a little fishing mini game going on right now, and
Ah, Fish Fish Revolution. Okay.
it's basically Dance Dance
Yeah,
Revolution.
yeah.
And now when the summer event first started, there were a lot of folks complaining about how hard the mini game was, especially on the phone. And to those people, I can understand because I tried it on my phone just so I'm like this is really easy on the computer. People that are complaining on the computer have no room to complain. They just don't have rhythm.
Mhm.
And then I tried to play it on the phone. I'm like, okay, these people have an argument. Like this is a little bit harder to do because we all fat finger things. Like
Mhm.
it was a little bit harder to do. Buttons were close together, so I got that. But it was fun because for me, it just took me back to high school when Dance Dance Revolution like was first hitting the scene, and that was really cool. And then also there was a version on the computer that was I think called Step Mania that me and a few of my friends would play, and that was Dance Dance Revolution, but it was on the computer, and so you were using your fingers, similar to what you're doing in this mini game. And so I have a lot of fun memories with that and getting very good and very competitive with my circle of friends in that. And so this just took me back to that, but it's a very happy, peppy Nikkei music,
Yeah.
which this summer event theme is I really enjoy the soundtrack for it. So that one's as of recent memory been very fun with the Fish Fish Revolution and but if I go to like Genshin and there are different mini games and stuff, yeah, I'm with you on the Archipelago Islands and specifically kind of like that tennis mini game
Mhm.
where you were bouncing it off a wall and having to hit it to make it hit certain targets type things and that one was a lot of fun and I know you could play it co-op, but I never did it co-op because it's
Uh,
like I do remember the latency spikes and so you would swing at the ball and then it would just go through your racket because you were behind because of latency issues. Because maybe I'm on the computer, but somebody's on the phone and not connected to Wi-Fi type thing,
yeah.
right? And conversely, other people were also like unreliable because maybe they were on a crummy connection or in a dead zone or something like that. So that was the downfall of it. But playing it by myself was still fun and yeah, a good experience. And not only like you said, it was a whole area you could explore, complete with like overworld puzzles and things to stumble upon that would unlock or change the nature, the water level of the terrain or whatever have you. So,
Yeah.
and I think and was I think my only at the time, I think my only like real thing about being upset about that one was like I think the intro quest when it was all foggy and you had to go lamppost to lamppost in the fog. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily love that. I don't love the Gerudo Valley type. If you go into the sands, you have to restart. I don't love that, but it was such a short interaction. It wasn't that big of a deal. But that's kind of I know like I said I know we bunny trailed a lot. We hit some conspiracy theories and things, but at the crux of it, it all boils down to because these are associated with summer events. And Steve, did you have any other topics with summer events or any other conspiracy theories you wanted to throw at us before we do a few other reviews on things?
No, I think we've managed to beat this dead horse quite a bit, so I'm gonna just let it lie.
Well, yeah, well, it's good dialogue, good conversation. about some of the things with summer events and things that come up with them. But yeah, now I want to jump over to some events we have going on right now with Genshin and Star Rail, and then give everybody kind of an update as well on some of our new characters that we pulled for in Hoyoverse games and how our plays are going with them. So let's jump into those events first. So looking at our new events that are going on this week in Hoyoverse games, we are looking at the Summertide Scales event currently running through Genshin, and then we have the Tales of Friendship Supervision in Zenless Zone Zero. And for those, I'm going to throw them over to Steve, let him break down what they are, his experience with them, and go from there.
Okay. Well, the Genshin summer event is upon us. I know we talked up Apple Archipelago quite a bit, but this year it is the Summertide Scales and Tails event. Overall, I would, unfortunately, due to the way Genshin does these events, they tend to release over a number of days, and at time of recording, it's still fairly early in the patch, so somewhat limited access, but it seems to be more close to the last year's event with the special theme park style setup versus the more Apple Archipelago, based off of where I've gotten so far and what I've managed to unlock and have access to. So probably will be circling around to this one again and giving a further review in the future at a later date, but at least as of the first weekish that we've had to play it, pretty solid. Again, it's a Genshin summer event, lots of stuff to do, lots of stuff to see, fun story events, story character interactions. So, yeah, not unfortunately not a lot to say yet, but again, we'll probably end up circling around to this one a little bit later once we've had a more full chance to play it. For ZZZ Friendship Supervision, as a first event for Zenless Zone Zero goes, it's fine. It's not bad. It is a little bit eclectic. You do a little bit of everything. I think it's a fun little story quest, but I'm not seeing it do anything radical. You're basically playing through a short story. You go into the hollow, you fight your way through it, and then you go back and do a side quest. Not really anything interesting in regards to like mini games. They're not doing anything crazy with the combat system that I've seen so far to make it unique or different. It's basically you're fighting pretty bog standard fights. So as a first event goes, it's a solid 5 out of 10. Not that, and we're not using the American grading scale or the Scholastic scale of like 6, 7, 8, 9 or passing. Like just it falls right in the middle. It's a 5 out of 10. But I would suggest those of you that are interested in it, do it. You do get a free Lucky Bangbu out of it, and I believe you can get it up to almost max refinement. So from that aspect, it's pretty good. Can help you out there. But yeah, that's about it for the events. I know that wasn't super in depth, but both of them are
Well,
fairly
that's the
new and
nature
yeah,
of Hoyoverse events, right? It's one
yeah,
day, one thing you can do in the event. Day two, you can do the next thing. Day three, and it's essentially where we're at. So,
yeah.
well, the next updates I wanted to do, while we didn't have any new characters get released this week, we did both have characters we pulled for in recent history, and so I wanted to give a quick update on how our experiences were with those characters that we had pulled. I'll just jump start real quickly. So with Genshin, recently I pulled for Clorind and Farina, and am currently using them in tandem on a team with Yelan and Jean. And while they're not fully built yet, I still need to farm a few more books of justice because unfortunately they both take books of justice. And so they're sitting at about 6 and 7 on their talent levels. And for their artifacts, the artifact grind is never over. Let's be honest. If you're playing Genshin or Star Rail, you know the artifact grind is never ending. So not ideal stats on most of those. I will say the play has been fun versus kind of it's something fresh, it's something new, but the play style is fun. Now because they're not fully built, it's not as efficient as my Nahida, Yaimiko, Yelan teams and domains, but it still has been pretty
Mm-hmm.
fun. Now jumping over for Star Rail for me, obviously recently pulling Jade. Got her built. She's nines across the board. I just need a few more erudition talent pieces to get her tens across the board. But even at nines, I have a decent artifact set on her. That's I think it's the right main stats on everything. Some substats could still be better, but I will say playing her in pure fiction with my Herda that I'm also working on building, Himiko who is built, and then I use Fushuan as my sustain has been a lot of fun. It's fun to just push a button and then watch all the follow up attacks trigger, and then more follow ups, and then the gimmick in this session's pure fiction go, and then more follow ups. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, I enjoy the aesthetic of the character, but it's been really enjoyable to just watch things go. And if you're playing on 2 times speed, it goes.
I feel
But
like having
Steve,
all three on one team is excessive. Like that's almost too much.
excessively fun. But Steve, you also recently had some characters pulled. So for Star Rail, and then I think it's Endless Zone Zero. So what's been your experience here as of recent with your characters?
So Firefly was the most recent character I pulled in Honkai. She's doing great. Her break team is solid, super solid. There's not necessarily a lot of content that I have left to play through with her, so she's mostly a Divergent Universe character. The way that they've
What team are you running with her? Out of curiosity, what'd you end up going with?
with Firefly, I'm running the Firefly team, so it's Firefly, Harmony, MC, Ruan Mei, and what is the bartender guy?
Gallagher.
Gallagher.
Okay.
Gallagher is the healer for that team. So basically, I'm running the Firefly team, the break team, with her. Again, for the most part, at this point in time, Divergent Universe is where she's getting a lot of play just because you can do some fun stuff with all of the different break and super break that blessings that they have there, and it makes farming for planar ornaments super easy because if you get the correct blessings, you basically walk into the zone, pop off your technique, watches the entire fight just ends, and then rinse and repeat over and over and over again. So, yeah, that's been Firefly for me. Moving over to Zenless Zone Zero, I did manage to get lucky and get Ellen. I failed my 50-50, but she came home early on my guarantee. So I've been playing with her. I just got her today. So she's not fully built, although to be fair, none of my characters are technically fully built in that context, but been running around with her and she's fun. There's a lot more depth to the combat system than I think I initially was giving it credit for. I'm not going to say it's some super deep, super amazing action combat system, but considering that they're using 3 or 4 buttons, there is more to it than originally I gave it credit for. Especially because of the way that Ellen's kit works. She has a number of different techniques and rotations that she has to go through that I wasn't originally really cognizant of when I was doing her test run. But she's fun. I'm enjoying her. I'm enjoying my little freeze team that I've been able to put together with her. So
Good to hear. Yeah, I was gonna say if somebody has a character fully built, they've really been burning the midnight oil in Zenless Zone Zero.
there's people out there with it, but
I,
yeah,
I'm sure there are, and more power to them. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, speaking of characters, while nothing new has dropped in terms of pullable characters, we did get some drip marketing for Honkai Star Rail characters. So there looks like there were 3 teasers that they gave us, and so while we can't talk about anything beyond their appearance because we just don't know at this point, I did want to at least mention it and see what initial impressions are of the character art. So we have 3 characters. The first one being, I don't know how you would pronounce that, Fei Xiao?
yeah, I believe it's Fei Xiao.
Fei
I'm
Xiao,
probably ruining the tonal nation there, but
probably. So she looks like she has some type of form,
yeah, she in
5-star
the
character, it looks like.
yeah, we should have it up on screen at this point, but she's got a gun blade and a flag, I believe, are the
Oh,
two
okay.
devices that she is carrying in the drip marketing. She also doesn't have a
I like
tail based on what we could see in the art. So
Look, I like a good gunblade, so I'll be interested to see more about her. And since she has that in one arm and then the flag in the other arm, I thought that was just a pole arm. But yeah, I'll be interested to learn more about this character. And I'm bone dry on things, so I will be pulling for folks that are fitting into a team that I have, not trying to build a new team. So hopefully her mechanics are something that fit
yeah, we will
for
see.
me.
She's a wind hunt character.
So
So
hunt guy.
yeah, who knows? That doesn't necessarily mean that she won't be able to handle content, but yeah, she's probably going to be some form of boss killer, would be my guess.
All right. And then coming up next for another 5-star character, we have coming up here Ling Sha.
Hmm.
Looks like a flame or fire unit
Fire preservation.
and preservation. Okay. So looking at that, obviously with fire, we got a lot of the red theme. We got a lot of herbs. It looks like on the table, and is that I guess mortar and pestle there
Yep,
for grinding up some things.
and
So
some little smoke rabbits.
a little smoker. Oh, okay. I didn't even notice that those were the smoke. That looks okay. That looks pretty good. I like that.
Also,
I
if
like the
you
aesthetic there.
if you notice, her hands and feet are red, and they have a scale pattern, so
Mm,
seems to be matching the dragon patterns that you
okay.
see on Bailu and Illuminator Dawn Hung.
Yes.
So
And then this last character coming up here is going to be looks like a 4-star character, Mose, and I can't say that name without instantly thinking about The Office and Mose in The Office. But yeah, we have Mose, 4-star character, hooded looking guy with looks like a dagger.
yeah.
And what path are we looking at for Mose, Steve?
He is a lightning hunt, four
Will also
star.
be a hunt character.
Yeah.
Okay.
So hopefully he does more than just damage, because unfortunately 4-star DPS tend to be a little bit limited in
Okay.
value. So hopefully he does something
Some type of
else.
other
Yeah.
support or some type of
Yeah,
gimmick.
brings something to the table. If you look at his background, he's got a lot of people in chains, and maybe it looks like Fei Zhao in the background, so maybe there's something going on there. Who knows?
Okay. Yeah, so interesting characters, and I guess we're going to be looking at these, learning more about them as we get closer to what 2.5. Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah, the based off of previous examples, this will be not next patch, but the patch after. Will be these
Okay.
three.
Yeah, so
Um,
using historical context of when we get drip marketing and then how long we have to wait to learn more. Yeah, that is fair. But that's gonna wrap it up for the drip marketing. Some quick character teasers that we have to look forward to. I wanted to very briefly talk about a couple of notes that are happening outside of the Hoyoverse universe. Very briefly, we mentioned it earlier, but Brown Dust 2 currently has their ongoing. They're actually coordinating a little bit. It's a track and field type event or story plot. I think it's coordinating with the summer games, the summer Olympics that are getting ready to start, or some sports are actually already playing, like basketball.
hmm.
But they released a new character costume. So like we referenced earlier in the podcast. So a new skin for a character in the game just means it's another ability for this character. So Lowen, that's track and field team member Lowen. She's a magic user. So this is going to complement her base skin that came out a few patches back. So if you're interested in trying out Brown Dust 2, they have their track and field or summer event going on right now, and then there'll be another new character who's brand new to the game will be coming out next. And then there's two more skins that they've teased. One will be a brand new character, and another one will be a costume of a pre-existing character. So that's kind of the roadmap that they've provided us and what we had to look forward to in the next few summer, both in the summer event for the track and field, and then I think the one after this one will be another school themed event. So that's what to look forward to there. But the other news that I just saw yesterday, which was exciting news that I wanted to talk about, was Girls Frontline 2 Exium has a English website and an English Twitter account. And I know what you're thinking, like, Girls Frontline is a very old Gotch game. Why are we talking about this? What? And Girls Frontline 2 Exium is going to be an XCOM style of game. So that's unique in the Gotcha space. I don't know if anybody's tried or done this yet, but I'm excited to try it out. I've seen some gameplay from the Eastern servers where it is currently out and released, and it's been teased about coming for global, and it's been held off for various reasons, which is a whole nother topic to get into at maybe a future time. But I'm excited to try it out because I liked
Mhm.
XCOM, and any combat that is different in the Gacha sphere, I'm down to try out.
Yeah, I am curious to see how Gacha will blend with XCOM style combat. I feel like there's some well trod ground on things like tower defense and standard JRPG style combat, mainly in stuff like how are they going to separate out characters and give them unique enough abilities that you can ideally still complete missions without needing somebody in order to make it work. I also assume that difficulty will not be anywhere near XCOM hard, but who knows? I'm
Yeah, I think 99% to hit will actually mean 99% chance to hit, unlike an XCOM, it feels. But yeah, I'm excited to see how they're gonna when they're gonna bring it out. That's the other thing. While we have the website and we have the Twitter account, all that it says on there is coming soon. We still don't have a hard and fast date. We don't even technically have a year, so it's not necessarily saying this year. It just says coming soon. Soon
yeah.
is a relative term. I hope it's 2024 because I'd really like to get my hands on it and try it out. But yeah, similar to what you expressed there, Steve. I'll be interested, yeah, with what they do with characters because do you just need the one nuke type character that'll win you the thing, and if you don't have that particular character, are you able to get through content and get through
Yeah.
it in a timely manner? Because I do believe clearing it within X amount of turns is going to be a great indicator of some kind. Maybe that's the typical 1, 2, or 3 star stage, or if they do the SABC type grading, I don't recall. But yeah, so just something to keep an eye on if you enjoy XCOM style gameplay. Girls Frontline 2 finally has some English marketing, which is a good sign for a global release. So we're looking forward to that. But I do want to thank everybody for joining us this week. Let us know down below what your thoughts are on the summer events and gotchas, or if you have thoughts on anything we bunny trailed into in relation to summer skins, alternate units, summer units, or even limited units. If you did enjoy the episode, be sure to leave a comment, like, follow, subscribe to the channel. You can always email us at brohoyopod@gmail.com with questions or suggestions for the show. If you love bunny trails, or maybe you don't like bunny trails, let us know. But we also have a link to our Discord in the description, so you can be sure to join us over there for news, game nights, and content notifications for when we put up new stuff. And join us next week when we're going to discuss how much gacha is too much gacha. But until then, keep gaming.
We made a choice, go fight against your fate.